The moment I saw my brother's signature on the deed to my house, I knew he'd been planning this for months. Maybe years. The ink was fresh, but the betrayal was old. He stood in what used to be my living room, keys in his hand, smiling that smile I'd trusted my entire life, and he said the words that changed everything: "It's mine now, Natalie. All of it. And there's nothing you can do about it." He had no idea I'd already found his filing cabinet. He had no idea what I knew. And he definitely had no idea that the person he'd just destroyed was about to become the architect of his complete unraveling. My name is Natalie. And this is the story of how my older brother stole the home my grandmother left me. How he manipulated my grief, forged documents, and smiled while doing it. How he thought being family meant I'd never fight back. And how I proved him spectacularly, devastatingly wrong. But you need to understand where this started. Because this didn't begin with a stolen house. It began 28 years ago, when my brother Marcus was born and became the center of our family's entire universe. Marcus was the golden child. I don't mean that as a figure of speech. I mean our parents actually called him that. Our golden boy. The son they'd prayed for after having 2 daughters first. My older sister Rebecca and I learned early that we existed in Marcus's orbit. He was the sun. We were distant planets, cold and mostly ignored. My parents weren't monsters. They loved us, I think. But they loved Marcus more. Differently. With an intensity that left no room for subtlety. Every achievement was his milestone. Every holiday centered on his comfort. Every family decision revolved around what was best for Marcus. Rebecca escaped at 18. Moved across the country, minimal contact, built a life as far from our family dynamics as geography would allow. I understood why, but I couldn't do it. Because there was one person in our family who saw me. Who loved me unconditionally. Who made me feel like I mattered. My grandmother, Rose. My father's mother. She lived in a beautiful craftsman house about 20 minutes from my parents'. 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a garden she'd tended for 40 years, and a front porch where we'd spend summer evenings drinking lemonade and talking about everything. She saw how our parents treated Marcus versus how they treated me. She never said anything directly, she was too diplomatic for that, but she showed me in other ways that I was valued. She taught me to cook. Helped me with homework. Listened when I talked about my dreams of becoming a physical therapist, working with kids, making a difference. "You have a gift for caring, Natalie," she'd tell me. "Don't let anyone make you feel like that's worth less than whatever Marcus does." Marcus became a lawyer. Corporate law. Made good money. My parents were insufferably proud. I became a physical therapist, just like I'd planned. Worked with pediatric patients. Made decent money, enough to live on, not enough to impress my parents. When I was 26, I got engaged to a man named David. Kind, steady, an elementary school teacher. We were planning a small wedding, something we could afford, something meaningful. My parents offered to contribute $5,000. When Marcus got married 2 years later to his college girlfriend Amber, my parents spent $40,000 on the wedding. Country club venue. 300 guests. Open bar. The works. I didn't go. Sent a gift. Made an excuse about work. My grandmother came to my apartment that week. "I saw the photos," she said. "Your parents spent more on the centerpieces than they gave you for your entire wedding." "I know. I'm sorry, sweetheart." "It's fine, Grandma. I'm used to it." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I didn't understand the weight of until much later. "When I'm gone, I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. You deserve something that's just yours." I brushed it off. Told her not to talk like that. She was healthy, vibrant, only 73. But she was also planning. 3 years later, my grandmother had a stroke. Sudden, massive, devastating. She died 2 days later in the hospital, surrounded by family. I was heartbroken. Genuinely, deeply shattered. She'd been my safe harbor my entire life. The one person who made me feel seen and valued exactly as I was. The funeral was on a Thursday. The will reading was the following Tuesday. We gathered in her attorney's office, my parents, Marcus and Amber, Rebecca who flew in, and me. The attorney, Mr. Harrison, was a kind man who'd known my grandmother for decades. He read through the preliminaries. Small bequests to friends and charities. Personal items distributed among family members. And then he got to the big one. To my beloved granddaughter Natalie, I leave my house at 847 Maple Street, along with all its contents, free and clear of any debt or encumbrance. It is my hope that this home provides her with the security and peace she has always deserved. I couldn't breathe. The house. She'd left me the house. My parents looked shocked. Marcus looked furious. That house is worth at least $400,000, Marcus said immediately. That's not fair. Fair to who? I asked quietly. To the family. That house should be sold and the proceeds divided equally. That's not what she wanted, Mr. Harrison said calmly. Mrs. Thornton was very clear about her wishes. She was elderly, Marcus continued. She might not have understood. She was of completely sound mind, Mr. Harrison interrupted. I assure you, this was her explicit intention. My mother spoke up. Marcus, your grandmother had her reasons. But I could see it in her eyes. Disappointment that I'd received something of value. Confusion that Rose had chosen me over Marcus. The meeting ended. I got the keys. I got the deed, freshly transferred to my name. I got my grandmother's house. I moved in 2 weeks later. David helped me pack up my apartment. We spent weekends painting rooms, updating fixtures, planting new flowers in the garden. It was perfect. It was mine. It was the first time in my life I'd owned something valuable that wasn't overshadowed by Marcus. But that wasn't the end of the story. Things got worse. Marcus became cold. Distant. He'd always been cordial with me, at least superficially. Now he wouldn't return my calls. Skipped family dinners if I was attending. Made comments to our parents about how unfair the inheritance was. Natalie got a $400,000 house and I got a watch, he'd say. How is that equitable? Never mind that our parents had given him the down payment for his first house. Never mind that they'd paid for his law school. Never mind the $40,000 wedding. But I tried to be understanding. I tried to be generous. I invited Marcus and Amber over for dinner. Offered to let them use the guest room when they visited from out of state. Tried to maintain the relationship. Marcus accepted the invitation once. Walked through the house with this look on his face like he was appraising property. Made comments about how much the place could sell for, how the neighborhood was appreciating, how lucky I was. Not, Grandma would be happy you're here. Not, this place suits you. Just comments about money. I should have seen the warning signs. But I didn't want to believe my brother would actually do what he was planning. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. David and I got married in the garden of my grandmother's house. Small ceremony, close friends, family. It was perfect. Marcus didn't come. Said he had a work commitment. Sent a card. My parents came but left early. My mother made a comment about how she wished we'd had it at a proper venue. Rebecca came and stayed the whole time. She pulled me aside at one point and said, "You know Marcus is never going to forgive you for getting this house. It's not my fault Grandma left it to me." I know. But he doesn't see it that way. Just, be careful, Nat. I didn't understand what she meant. Be careful of what? 6 months after the wedding, David got a job offer in Seattle. Amazing opportunity, significant pay increase, doing exactly the kind of work he'd always wanted. We talked about it for weeks. Could we do long distance for a year while I wrapped up some commitments at my clinic? Could he turn it down? What were our options? We decided he'd take the job. I'd join him in a year. We'd rent out my grandmother's house, I couldn't bear to sell it, and start fresh on the West Coast. It was a good plan. A solid plan. Except I made one critical mistake. I asked Marcus to help me manage the rental process. He was a lawyer. He knew contracts. I thought he'd help me find good tenants, draft a solid lease, protect my interests. I thought I could trust him. Of course I'll help, he said when I called. That's what family does. I should have known. I should have seen it coming. But I didn't. Marcus found tenants quickly. A young couple, stable jobs, good references. The lease looked standard. I signed where he told me to sign. He handled the deposit. Set up an account for the rent payments. Told me he'd manage everything while I was in Seattle. You focus on David and your new life, he said. I'll take care of the house. I hugged him. Thanked him. Felt grateful that maybe we were finally repairing our relationship. I moved to Seattle 3 months later. David and I found a small apartment. I got licensed to practice in Washington. Started working at a pediatric clinic. Built a new life. The rent payments came regularly. Marcus sent me monthly updates. Everything seemed fine. For 8 months. And then my mother called. Natalie, I need to ask you something. Why didn't you tell us you were selling the house? My stomach dropped. What? Marcus mentioned you'd decided to sell. I'm a little hurt you didn't discuss it with us first, but I understand it's your decision. Mom, I'm not selling the house. Where did you hear that? A pause. Marcus said you'd signed papers. That you'd decided it was too much trouble to manage from Seattle. I never signed anything about selling. I'm renting it out. Marcus is managing the tenants. Another pause. Longer this time. Natalie, you need to call Marcus. Now. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. And again. Left voicemails. Sent texts. Finally, he responded, we need to talk. I'll call you tomorrow. He didn't call tomorrow. Or the next day. Or the next. I called Mr. Harrison, my grandmother's attorney. Asked if he could check the status of the deed to the house. Let me look into it, he said. I'll call you back. He called back 3 hours later. His voice was different. Careful. Natalie, there's been a change to the deed. It shows a transfer of ownership dated 6 weeks ago. From you to Marcus Thornton. The room spun. That's impossible. I never transferred anything. The signature on the transfer document is notarized. It appears to be legitimate. I never signed any transfer. I never even saw a transfer document. Then we have a serious problem. I flew home the next day. David wanted to come but couldn't get off work. I went alone. I went straight to the house. My house. The house my grandmother had left me. There was a new lock on the door. My key didn't work. I stood on that porch, the porch where my grandmother and I had spent so many evenings, and I called Marcus. This time he answered. Where are you? I asked. At the house. Your old house. Come over if you want to talk. I was already there. I walked around to the back door. It was unlocked. Marcus was in the living room. Sitting on my grandmother's couch like he owned the place. Because according to the deed, he did. What did you do? I asked. He stood up. And he smiled. That same smile I'd trusted my entire life. I corrected an unfair situation. You stole my house. I exercised a legal transfer that you authorized when you signed the property management agreement. I signed a rental management agreement. Not a transfer of ownership. Actually, you signed a document that gave me power of attorney over the property, including the right to execute transfers if deemed necessary for proper management. It was in the fine print. Page 7. Paragraph 3. My blood ran cold. You tricked me. I protected family assets from being squandered. This house should have gone to me in the first place. Grandma was elderly. She didn't understand the financial implications. She understood perfectly. She wanted me to have it. She was sentimental. I'm practical. This house represents generational wealth that should stay with the person who can best preserve it. That's me. You can't do this. I'll fight it. I'll sue you. He pulled out a folder. Handed it to me. Inside were documents. The power of attorney I'd signed, hidden in what I thought was a rental management agreement. A notarized transfer of deed. Documents showing the transfer had been recorded with the county. It's legal, Marcus said. My firm reviewed everything. You gave me power of attorney. I executed a transfer. The deed is in my name. The house is mine. Why? My voice broke. Why would you do this? Because I deserved it more than you. Because I'm the one who will actually appreciate its value. Because you would have just lived here, wasted its potential, while I can leverage it properly. Grandma wanted me to have it. Grandma's dead. And her sentimentality doesn't override basic fairness. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. And I saw a stranger. Get out, he said. This is my house now. You're trespassing. I left. Drove to my parents' house in a daze. They were sympathetic. Sort of. We're sure Marcus didn't mean to hurt you, my mother said. Maybe if you talked to him? He stole my house, Mom. Using documents he tricked me into signing. That's a very serious accusation, my father said. Marcus is a lawyer. He wouldn't do anything illegal. But he did something immoral. My father sighed. Family disputes over property are always complicated. Maybe the best thing is to move forward. You have a good life in Seattle. Maybe this is a sign that you should let go of the house and... Let go. He stole from me. He's your brother, Natalie. This family has already been through enough conflict. Do you really want to tear us apart over a house? I stared at them. At these people who had spent my entire life prioritizing Marcus. Who even now, faced with clear evidence of his betrayal, were asking me to be the bigger person. I'm going to fight this, I said. Don't be dramatic, my mother said. You'll only make things worse. I left their house and I went to a hotel. And I sat there in that generic room, and I cried harder than I'd cried since my grandmother died. Because I'd lost more than a house. I'd lost my family. Again. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I believed them. For about 12 hours, I actually considered just letting it go. Moving on. Accepting that Marcus had one. And then I remembered something my grandmother told me once. You have a gift for caring, Natalie. But don't confuse kindness with weakness. When someone hurts you, you have every right to protect yourself. I wasn't going to let him win. I hired an attorney. A good one. Explained the situation. Showed her the documents. She reviewed everything carefully. This is fraudulent, she said. He buried the power of attorney clause in a document you thought was something else. That's fraud. Can we prove it? We can try. But Marcus is a lawyer. He covered his tracks well. This will be expensive. And difficult. And there's no guarantee we'll win. How expensive? She named a figure that made my stomach drop. Money I didn't have. money that would drain my savings and put me in debt. I thanked her. Told her I'd think about it. I called Rebecca that night. I told you to be careful, she said sadly. I know. What are you going to do? I don't know. I can't afford to fight him. And even if I could, my lawyer says it's not guaranteed. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then, there might be another way. What do you mean? Marcus isn't as careful as he thinks he is. He's always been arrogant. And arrogant people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? I don't know yet. But I know Marcus. He has secrets. Everyone does. And if you're smart about it, you might find leverage that doesn't require a courtroom. I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. But I was about to learn. I flew back to Seattle. Told David everything. He was furious. Wanted to fly to my hometown and confront Marcus personally. He's a lawyer, I said. He'll just call the police. Then we sue him. With what money? David deflated. There has to be something we can do. There is, I said. I'm going to find out everything I can about Marcus. His business. His finances. His life. And I'm going to find something he doesn't want anyone to know. Nat, I love you, but you're a physical therapist, not a detective. Then I'll learn. I started researching. How to investigate someone. What public records were available. How to track financial transactions. I spent hours online, learning, absorbing, planning. And I remembered something. When Marcus had come to dinner at the house that one time, he'd made a phone call. Stepped into my grandmother's old office. The room I'd converted into a home office. I'd walked past the door and heard fragments. No, she doesn't know. The transfers are clean, nothing traceable. I'd dismissed it at the time as work stuff. But now I wondered. I called Rebecca. When you said Marcus has secrets, what did you mean? I don't know specifically. But remember when Mom and Dad lent him money for his first house? Yeah. Did you know he borrowed from them 3 more times after that? And never paid any of it back? How much? Over $100,000. They wrote it off as helping family. But Marcus never even acknowledged it as a loan. Treated it like gifts. That's not illegal though. No. But it's information. And information is leverage. I thought about that. About what else I might not know. Rebecca, when Marcus was managing my house, did he ever mention anything about other properties? Other investments? He mentioned something once about managing real estate for clients. Why? Just curious. I hung up and started digging. Public records. Property transfers. Business registrations. And that's when I found it. Marcus had an LLC. Thornton Property Management. Registered 2 years ago. Right around the time he'd started acting weird about my inheritance. I dug deeper. Found records of property transfers. Multiple properties. Small residential homes, mostly. Bought, renovated, flipped, or rented. None of it was illegal. But it was interesting. Because according to the business registration, Marcus wasn't the only owner of Thornton Property Management. There was a silent partner. Someone named Jennifer Cole. I'd never heard that name. I searched social media. Found a profile. Jennifer Cole. Real estate agent. Attractive. Professional photos. And in her About section, proud business partner with Thornton Property Management. I looked at her photos more carefully. Found one from 8 months ago. A dinner setting. Romantic lighting. 2 wine glasses. The caption, celebrating new ventures with my favorite person. The next photo showed a hand. Male hand. Holding hers. Wedding ring clearly absent. I felt sick. I called Amber, Marcus's wife. We'd never been close, but we were cordial. Hey Amber, quick question. Does Marcus ever mention a business partner named Jennifer Cole? A pause. Who? Jennifer Cole. She's listed as co-owner of his property management company. Marcus doesn't have a property management company. He works at the law firm. He registered an LLC 2 years ago. Thornton Property Management. Jennifer Cole is the co-owner. Another pause. Longer. I need to go. She hung up. I'd just inadvertently told Marcus's wife about a business, and probably a relationship, she didn't know existed. I felt guilty for about 10 seconds. Then I kept digging. Over the next 3 weeks, I learned more about my brother than I'd known in 28 years. Thornton Property Management had purchased 6 properties in the last 2 years. The financing was interesting. Personal loans from multiple sources. Some legitimate bank loans. Some from individuals. I cross-referenced names. Found 3 that looked familiar. They were clients of Marcus's law firm. Elderly clients. Estate planning clients. That seemed wrong. But I couldn't prove anything yet. I also found something else. The LLC had a business account. And that account showed regular transfers. Money moving in and out. Some of it made sense, property purchases, renovation costs, sale proceeds. But some of it didn't. Regular monthly transfers to a personal account. Marcus's personal account. Not dividends. Not profit distribution. Just transfers. 50,000 here. 30,000 there. It looked like he was moving money out of the business before profits were calculated. Which meant he was probably underreporting income. Which meant tax fraud. I took everything I'd found to a forensic accountant. Paid for 2 hours of his time. Showed him the records I'd compiled. He looked through it carefully. This is interesting, he said finally. If what you're showing me is accurate, there are several red flags here. The transfers to personal accounts without proper documentation. The loans from elderly clients. The timing of property purchases relative to his access to client estate information. What does that mean? It means your brother might be engaged in elder financial abuse. Using his position as an attorney to pressure vulnerable clients into making loans they don't understand. It's illegal. It's also very hard to prove without access to those clients directly. What about the tax stuff? If he's moving money out of the business without declaring it as income, that's tax evasion. The IRS would be very interested in that. But again, you'd need more than these records. You'd need bank statements, tax returns, documentation. How would I get that? He smiled. You'd need someone with access to his files. Someone he trusts. Someone on the inside. I didn't have anyone on the inside. But I had something better. I had a sister-in-law who'd just found out her husband had a secret business and possibly a secret relationship. I called Amber 2 days later. Asked if we could meet for coffee. She agreed. We met at a cafe halfway between our hometowns. She looked tired. Stressed. I confronted Marcus about the LLC, she said before I could even sit down. He admitted it. Said it was a side investment. That he didn't tell me because I wouldn't understand the financial complexity. What did you say? I asked about Jennifer Cole. He said she's just a business partner. That I was being paranoid. Do you believe him? She looked at me with eyes that had cried recently. No. Amber, I need to ask you something. And you don't have to help me. But I think Marcus has been doing things that are worse than having a secret business. I told her everything. The stolen house. The suspicious loans. The tax irregularities. She listened without interrupting. I want to see his files, she said when I finished. What? Marcus has a home office. File cabinets. Documents. If what you're saying is true, the proof is probably there. You'd do that? He stole from you. He lied to me. And if he's stealing from his clients? She shook her head. Yes. I'll do it. 2 weeks later, Amber called me. I have everything, she said. Can you come get it? I flew home that weekend. Met Amber at a park. She handed me a box. I made copies of everything I thought was relevant. Bank statements. Client files. Tax documents. Correspondence with Jennifer. Thank you. Natalie, some of this is really bad. He's been taking money from clients. Telling them it's for estate management fees. But the fees aren't real. He's just pocketing it. How much? Over $200,000 from 4 different clients over 3 years. I felt sick. That's elder abuse. I know. I called 2 of the clients. Pretended to be doing a follow-up. They had no idea they'd been charged those fees. They trusted Marcus completely. What are you going to do? I'm filing for divorce. And I'm going to cooperate with whatever investigation happens. But I need you to be the one who starts it. Because if it comes from me, it looks like a bitter spouse. If it comes from you, it looks like a victim reporting a crime. Exactly. I took the box home. Spent 3 days going through everything with my attorney. She was shocked. This is beyond fraud, she said. This is systematic financial exploitation. He's been running a scheme using his law practice as cover. What do I do? You report it. To the State Bar Association. To the district attorney. To the IRS. And you do it with complete documentation. Will I get my house back? Once he's facing criminal charges? I'd say you'll have significant leverage to negotiate whatever you want. I filed the reports the next week. All of them. State Bar, DA, IRS. Complete documentation. Every transaction. Every suspicious loan. Every transfer. The investigation started within days. Marcus found out when 2 investigators from the DA's office showed up at his law firm. He called me that night. Furious. What did you do? I reported financial crimes. The same way any citizen would. You're destroying my career over a house? I'm reporting elder abuse and tax fraud. The house is almost irrelevant at this point. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. I have your files. Your bank statements. Your client correspondence. Everything. A long silence. Amber gave them to you. Yes. That's illegal. That's theft of privileged documents. They're not privileged when they document crimes. My attorney was very clear about that. I'll fight this. I have resources. I have connections. Good luck with that. I hung up. The investigation took 4 months. During that time, Marcus was suspended from practicing law. His law firm distanced themselves. Several clients filed civil suits. Jennifer Cole, his business partner/mistress, turned on him immediately. Provided testimony that Marcus had pressured her into falsifying business documents. That he'd told her the money they were making was completely legal and she'd believed him. The State Bar Association began disbarment proceedings. The IRS filed charges for tax evasion. The district attorney filed charges for elder financial abuse. And through it all, I waited. The house was still in Marcus's name. But with criminal charges pending, my attorney filed a motion to freeze all his assets, including the property. Marcus tried to fight it. Argued that the house was legitimately his. But the judge wasn't sympathetic. A man facing multiple fraud charges claiming a property transfer from his sister that happened under suspicious circumstances? the transfer was voided pending investigation. The house went back into my name. Marcus's trial was set for 8 months later. But 3 weeks before trial, his attorney approached mine with a deal. Marcus would plead guilty to reduced charges. He'd repay all the stolen money. He'd accept disbarment. He'd publicly apologize to his victims. And he'd sign a document confirming that the transfer of my house was fraudulent and that he had no claim to the property. In exchange, the DA would recommend a lighter sentence. Probation instead of prison time. My attorney called me. What do you think? Will he actually have to repay everyone? It's part of the plea agreement. If he doesn't, he goes to prison. And he admits the house was never his? In writing. Legally binding. Then I agree. Marcus signed the plea agreement. Admitted to fraud. Agreed to repay over $200,000 to his victims. He was sentenced to 5 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and permanent disbarment from practicing law. His reputation was destroyed. His career was over. His marriage was over. Amber divorced him and got a very favorable settlement. And the house came back to me. I didn't go to the sentencing. Didn't need to see him humiliated in person. I was in Seattle, living my life, working at the clinic, building my future with David. But I did get a letter. From Marcus. Forwarded by my attorney. It was short. I'm sorry for what I did. I was jealous and greedy and I convinced myself I deserved what was yours. I destroyed my life trying to take something that was never mine to begin with. I hope someday you can forgive me. I read it once. Then I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll forgive him. But not today. My parents tried to reconcile. Asked me to understand that Marcus had made mistakes but was still family. I told them I'd be happy to have a relationship with them. But I wouldn't pretend Marcus's betrayal didn't happen. And I wouldn't be pressured into forgiveness I didn't feel. They chose Marcus. Of course they did. They always had. Rebecca and I are closer now than we've ever been. She flew out to Seattle last month. We had dinner. Talked about everything. I'm proud of you, she said. You could have just accepted it. Let him win because fighting was too hard. I thought about it. But you didn't. You fought back. And you won. I didn't want to win, I said. I just wanted what was mine. That's the same thing. Maybe it is. I still have my grandmother's house. I rent it out to a lovely family. Use the income to supplement my work at the clinic, which lets me take on more pro bono cases. I think Grandma would approve of that. Sometimes I think about Marcus. About how he destroyed his entire life trying to take something he felt entitled to. And I think about how different things could have been if he'd just been happy for me. If he'd accepted that Grandma wanted me to have the house. If he'd let go of his jealousy and his resentment. But he couldn't. He was so consumed by the idea that he deserved more that he couldn't see what he already had. And he lost everything. My brother took my home. He thought he'd won. He thought being a lawyer made him smarter than me. He thought I'd just accept it and move on. He was wrong about all of it. I took his secrets. I exposed his crimes. I dismantled his entire life with the same precision he used to steal from me. Not because I'm vengeful. Not because I wanted to hurt him. But because some things are worth fighting for. Your home. Your inheritance. The gift someone gave you because they loved you. You don't let people take those things. Not even family. Especially not family. My brother thought he could steal from me and I'd be too weak to fight back. He learned the hard way that kindness isn't weakness. And that the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous one to cross. He took my home. I took his secrets. And I'd do it again. Because you don't get to destroy someone and walk away unscathed. Even if you're family. Especially if you're family.